promoter's fatal devotion is captured on camera.
It was like the worst horror movie you would ever see, except it was real.
A gifted student becomes a next-door nightmare.
Her love was turning to hate. He had to get away from her.
And a wife
I'm not going to Florida.
can't say goodbye to her missing husband from a tainted love.
Some women are manipulative. Some women are soulless.
Oh my.
When they're together in the same body, get out of town.
Late at night in 2017, Atlanta, Georgia. A neighbor opens her door to distressed 28-year-old Sierra Harp
Oh my God. I need help.
and her infant daughter.
Oh my. Come in.
Sierra's legs are bleeding like crazy. She has 8 to 10 stab wounds, deep stab wounds in her legs.
Oh, what happened? What happened?
Shaking with fear, Sierra reveals her shocking story.
Oh my God, girl, what happened? Raheem, he tried to. Raheem did this?
The child's father, Raheem, is dead.
I killed him. My God. Just stay there.
Sierra claimed self-defense. I had to kill him. I had to shoot him.
Sierra even has evidence, because the altercation is recorded on Raheem's phone.
911, what's your emergency?
Yes, I need an ambulance. And the police. Hurry.
But what it reveals is even more terrifying.
It was like the worst horror movie you would ever see, except it was real.
4 years earlier, 24-year-old nightclub promoter Sierra wants to take on the world.
We have a saying here that kids like Sierra, they're about that life. Sierra was about that life. That means she doesn't want to follow rules. She wants to live in a world where she can do whatever she wants to do. And she was beautiful.
See to that? Come through. Hey, girl. Oh, my.
When 24-year-old Raheem Grant walks into her life, she wants him too.
Damn, girl. You want to pick that tongue up before you trip on it?
When Sierra wanted Raheem's attention. She wanted his lifestyle. And she did whatever she could to keep other women away from him.
Driven by determination, Sierra has a plan. Just 2 months after they meet, the pair are bonded for life, whether Raheem likes it or not.
So she spiked his drink. She spiked his drink with a drug, which made him drowsy. So they had sex. And after that, Raheem didn't even remember the sex. In her twisted little brain, she figured out, if he could be my baby daddy, maybe I could be his wife.
Sierra gives birth to a baby girl and presents DNA proof that Raheem is the father.
Hey, Raheem.
What?
Got something for you.
Sierra thought that this baby would lead Raheem to ask her for her hand in marriage. She had these visions of grandeur.
I told you.
But instead of a marriage proposal, Sierra gets a dose of reality.
She deserves better than you.
Oh, he was mad. He was mad with her.
But look, you love her.
This child was born for one purpose and one purpose only. And once Sierra saw that that wasn't working, the child was collateral damage.
3 weeks after giving birth, Sierra walks away and abandons her own child.
Keep her. I didn't want a baby anyway.
She doesn't want to take care of a baby. She was happy to give the baby to Raheem, who was the father.
He had to make a choice. to be a good dad or to just be a deadbeat dad, and he chose to be a good father.
But Sierra still has some power over Raheem. If he wants full custody of his daughter, Sierra must give the official consent.
An unwed father in the state of Georgia has no rights to the child. That's what really got him.
Sierra was using this baby as a pawn. So they had to be very delicate with her. They didn't want to upset her and have her pull the baby away.
When Sierra loses her job, Raheem decides it's wise to keep her close.
Right. Okay. Is that the last of it?
Sierra didn't have a place to live.
Yeah.
So Raheem let her move into the apartment.
This could be a fresh start.
There was no expectation she was going to stay for a long time or that they were going to be in any kind of relationship.
Hey, look, Shawty, only reason you're here is because you just lost your job.
Sierra has other ideas.
Hey, are we clear?
She had no plans to let Raheem go. With someone as unstable as Sierra was, there's no such thing as a short visit. It's either long-term or fatal.
It's a whoa, hey.
In Atlanta, Georgia, on December 29th, 2017, Raheem Grant relaxes at home with a friend.
Raheem's personal trainer came over, a woman.
Your ex-girlfriend, she's crazy.
She was a friend of his, and she was beautiful.
Where they were just going to smoke some weed and then they were just going to hang out on the couch, which is exactly what they did.
Hey, Shawty, this is Elise. She's my gym buddy.
We're more than that.
Well, y'all need to keep it down because I'm trying to sleep.
Wow. I gotta go, man. I have to go.
Raheem's friend leaves, but Sierra doesn't calm down.
It enraged her and lit the fire.
Man, what's wrong with you?
I've told you 100 times, I'm sick and tired of there being women in this house. You understand?
Hey, calm down. It's okay.
That's where the argument started.
What's wrong? Hey, calm down.
It was real and it was chilling to watch.
After the argument breaks out, Raheem has a bloody face. And we know that because he recorded it.
Yeah, okay. Hey, you see that? Look at that. Look at this. See that? That's what Sierra Hart did to me.
And he says, y'all see this? Y'all see what this bitch did to me? This is what Sierra Harp did to me.
Look at this. You see that? That's Sierra Hart.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
We
You
doing
hear that? You hear that?
Suddenly, Sierra confronts Raheem during the recording.
She comes up behind him
Yeah. Hey!
and there's a gunshot.
What the?
Sierra shoots Raheem in the spine. Paralyzed, he's pinned to the floor.
The phone falls to the ground, and suddenly you see Sierra standing above him with a gun, screaming.
Realizing the phone is recording, Sierra has to think fast.
Screw you! This man, he beat me for 4 years! This man put me in hospital!
She sees an opportunity to turn the tables on her victim.
How'd you think this was gonna go, Raheem? Huh?
She had figured out that, how can I create self-defense? Well, if I have it on video, cursing at Raheem, saying that he had abused her, and this is why I'm shooting him, it doesn't make sense, but in Sierra's twisted mind, it did.
Stop! If you kill me, you're going to prison for life!
And the whole time Raheem is saying, baby, no. Don't shoot again. You'll go to prison. Don't do it.
Stop, please! You think you can just walk away from me? From me?
For the next 13 minutes, Sierra continues to shoot 6 times in total, all caught on camera.
What did you think was gonna happen, Raheem?
Every time she shot him, she was making a point.
I told you no girls! You think you can just walk away from me? From me?
I hate you. No one else is gonna have you. Take this.
Raheem is inching his way to the bedroom. where their 3-year-old daughter is witness to everything.
She was in the bed, and my son was right there on the floor right by the bed. So she could see everything was going on, and I can only imagine him seeing the fear in his daughter's face, and that was his concern.
No.
I told you once.
I just want to help my daughter. Please listen.
Before he died, all he wanted to do was to hug his baby girl. And Sierra said, no, you don't get that opportunity. This is it for you.
No, please.
It was a straight-up execution.
Rahim had been especially dedicated to his daughter. But Sierra robbed them both of everything.
It's one thing for Sierra to take the life of Rahim, an adult. She ruined the life of her little daughter.
He was my best friend, and my son, and a great father and a brother. And everybody said it get better. It doesn't get better, not when you lose a child.
The violence doesn't end with Rahim's death. Sierra needs physical evidence of self-defense. So she stabs herself in the legs.
These are huge stab wounds. Huge stab wounds. Something that you could bleed out and die from.
I've seen self-inflicted wounds, and they're generally not serious wounds, but that isn't what happened here. But then again, nothing about Sierra was normal.
At first, the police believed Sierra's account of self-defense.
Can you explain this video?
But the video reveals a vital flaw in her story.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This video. The one where you murder an unarmed man.
So then he just hits play. And she's watching.
After the first gunshot, it's clear to see.
Where are your injuries, Sierra?
Her legs aren't stabbed in the video. She stabbed herself afterward. And she watches for about 5 seconds, and then she just turns and just starts looking at the detectives again, just like this. Stone-faced. Stone-faced. Staring at the detectives.
Sierra was the architect of her own demise. Thank God.
In 2019, Sierra Harp is convicted of 5 counts of aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during a crime, and voluntary manslaughter. She is sentenced to a total of 125 years in prison.
At the end of this trial, I'm not sure I've ever seen somebody who is so evil and manipulative as Sierra Harp.
Sierra couldn't bear the thought of Rahim with another woman. If she couldn't have him, no one would.
Her main goal, I'd rather see him dead first. And that's what she did. She took his life. Because she's not crazy. She's straight evil.
In 14 seasons of Deadly Women, I have never seen a case like this. One of the worst cases of obsessive stalking I've seen. She was an unstoppable train of obsession. This is a textbook case of what not to do.
1980, in the coastal community of Carlsbad, Southern California. 21-year-old Linda Riccio arrives on the doorstep of her new boyfriend, Ron Ruse.
Linda Riccio was a smart, vivacious, and very pretty woman.
Hey. What's going on?
I got thrown out. I don't know where to go.
Come on in.
They both worked at a car dealership, and Ron was a mechanic and she worked the front desk area. So they met each other and they began dating.
Linda showed up at Ron's apartment with all of her belongings packed in her car.
Don't cry.
Ron was the type of person that was very welcoming and would have extended a helping hand.
Hey, you can stay here till you get back on your feet.
They were just dating casually, and the next thing he knows, she's moved in with him.
You're a godsend. There are more bags in the car.
Really?
I don't think Linda's mother threw her out at all. I think the whole thing was a manipulation to get into Ron's life.
Linda gives up work to study and settles comfortably into domestic life with Ron.
Linda was also enrolled at San Diego State and had big dreams of becoming a photojournalist.
They were very happy early on. They were getting along.
Despite her busy schedule, Linda always makes time for Ron.
I didn't know that we were going out.
It's just a guy's night.
I'm coming.
In fact, she rarely lets him out of her sight.
Linda was a huge part of Ron's life. She went everywhere with him.
Not tonight. You've got to study and I won't be late.
You're going to leave me here alone?
Whether it was at the beach surfing or at the bar hanging out with his friends, if Ron was there, Linda was there.
Linda, please don't start.
What if something bad was to happen to me?
This was a pattern that started to emerge with Linda.
All right, come.
Naturally, Ron started backing away, and that only increased Linda's need to be with him all the time.
Ron feels trapped. He quietly makes plans to end the relationship.
He had to get away from her. She was suffocating him.
I went to your work and you weren't there.
He went out and rented an apartment without telling her, and then once that was, squared away, he went back and said, "Look, I'm moving out."
I had things to organize. I'm moving out.
It did set her off. It made her angry. She felt like she was owed an explanation.
We're moving out?
No.
Ron was a thoughtful and caring person, and even though he moved out, he continued to pay the rent and the utility bills for the apartment.
I'll look after you, but I don't want to be with you.
I think all of those things sent a very mixed message. He didn't want to hurt her feelings, but that sent a message to her that maybe he still loved her.
Cheers! Well played today, man.
But Linda just can't let him go.
Ron was playing softball one night. She showed up at the field, and the harassment and the manipulation and the threats just dialed up to another level.
Is that Linda? She turns up everywhere, at work, at the beach.
Her love was turning to hate.
I saw you golfing yesterday. You looked terrible in those shorts.
Linda, please, just leave me alone.
It's okay for you to say. You're not pregnant.
She also claims that she's pregnant with Ron's child.
Yeah, that's right. I'm pregnant. So see, you can't leave me. You can't leave us. Yeah. You have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to your family.
She admitted to her own mother, "Mom, I was never pregnant. I was just testing Ron. I was just throwing it out there to see if he would come back."
6 years. That's 6 years that we had together. You just want to throw it all away. Guess what? You have to. No, you have to take care. No, wait. Come back, Ron. Ron.
When Ron moves apartments for the second time, Linda finally seems to get the message.
Ron could breathe again. Vicky.
Hey.
Hey!
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What's for dinner?
Oh, we got veggies, potatoes, steak.
Yum.
Yep.
What can I do?
This.
They were very happy together. They were getting along very well.
You know, you make me really happy.
Yeah, so do you. You know how much you mean to me, right?
Yeah.
He really hit it off with Vicky and was thinking that she may be the one.
He told his mom he was in love.
I should get your back.
Yeah, that's right. We are cooking.
Yeah.
But Linda isn't giving up the love of her life without a fight.
Linda wasn't just a stalker, she was an obsessive stalker. Obsessive stalkers are among the most dangerous predators on Earth.
Linda Riccio has a new target in her sights.
Linda started stalking Vicky. No surprise there.
It becomes clear that this is a situation out of hand.
In October 1987, Ron takes out a restraining order against Linda.
By the time he got the restraining order, he had real concerns for his safety and his life.
But at the time, stalking isn't treated as a serious crime, especially when the victim is a man.
In 1987, it wasn't quite taken seriously that a man would be in danger of his life being stalked by a girlfriend.
The judge actually said, you should be flattered, Ron, that this woman wants you.
Before Linda can be served with the restraining order, she dumps some of Ron's belongings on his doorstep, along with a message for Vicky.
She writes Vicky a letter, essentially saying, there's no way in the world I'm going to let you have my man.
That was the point where Vicky was like, what did I get myself into here?
I'm so sorry. I can't do this.
Vicky, wait!
Vicky got scared and moved out, and frankly, can you blame her?
Ron has now moved multiple times to escape Linda.
At Ron's latest apartment block, Linda makes a fateful discovery. The apartment right next to Ron's is empty.
I'll take it. Well, would you like to have a look at the rental agreement?
She gets an appointment with the property manager. When they were showing her the apartment, she almost immediately said, I'll take it.
Oh, it's exactly what I'm looking for.
She surreptitiously rented the apartment on the other side of the wall from Ron. She would listen to what was going on in his apartment. Absolutely out of control.
The apartment isn't Linda's only acquisition.
Linda now has a weapon.
It was a .38, a revolver, and she told the salesman she wanted a weapon that would stop a person.
She knew exactly what was about to happen.
For 2 days, Linda monitors Ron's every movement next door. Then, on December 14th, 1987, she strikes.
As Ron approached the door to his apartment, Linda stepped out on the landing.
And she opens fire.
The first bullet hits him in the side.
Ron turns around and tries to escape down the stairs.
And at that point, he's yelling, help. She stands at the top of the stairs, shooting him in the back.
He ran to a neighbor's and started banging on the door and yelling.
He knows the woman who lives there, Janet. She's a nurse. Bangs on the door. Janet, help, let me in.
Janet! Janet! Ron! Shot!
Janet opens the door and Ron falls into her apartment, bleeding to death.
Linda doesn't know if Ron is alive or dead, and she doesn't wait to find out.
She gets in her car and drives from Carlsbad into the city of Oceanside, maybe a couple of miles away.
Ron is fatally injured.
Ron, take this person down! Person down, Ron!
He dies before paramedics arrive.
Ron was a good guy. He didn't deserve the manipulation. He didn't deserve the harassment. He certainly didn't deserve to lose his life.
So as Ron lays dying in his neighbor's apartment, Linda uses a phone booth to call the police and turn herself in.
911, what's your emergency?
I just shot someone in my apartment building. Please send help.
Her initial story was that she wanted to commit suicide in front of Ron so he would feel the pain and the guilt and would have to deal with that for the rest of his life.
Ma'am, are you armed?
No. I shot him. And I was thinking about shooting myself.
I wish I had $1 for every time a murderer said, I was gonna kill myself, but then I changed my mind.
It was like I was watching myself. I hope Ron's okay.
Of course Linda knew he wasn't okay. She intended to kill him, and she did.
In 1989, Linda Riccio is convicted of first-degree murder. She's serving a sentence of 27 years to life in prison. Her numerous applications for parole have been refused.
Linda's never getting out of prison, I can assure you of that.
All through the trial and still to this day, Linda claims that she is not at fault for the murder of Ron Roos.
Linda's love became an all-consuming obsession, and no one saw the true danger until it was too late.
Linda had a monster in her, and she couldn't control it. It eventually destroyed 2 lives. It is a myth that criminals and murderers get caught because they want to. I believe they get caught because they get sloppy.
On the outskirts of Atlantic City, a love long lost is rediscovered. Recently widowed, 45-year-old Loretta Doyle gets a surprise visit from the past.
Loretta.
50-year-old Danny Burrows.
Loretta and Danny were high school sweethearts.
Danny, it's been so long.
You look good.
Danny contacted her out of the blue, and he wanted to express his condolences.
I heard about Joe. I'm really sorry.
Thanks. I heard you got married.
Well, divorced.
That sort of jump-started their relationship.
Can I help you with those?
It's okay. Come in.
And before long, the relationship became serious.
They seemed like the perfect couple. My dad finally found what he was waiting for, and she made him happy.
Wedding bells bring more than a life companion. Loretta helps Danny heal old wounds.
Danny's children had been estranged from him ever since he left their mother. And Loretta set out to befriend them and make everything better. And it worked.
We started hanging out on a regular basis, me and my brother and Loretta and my dad. I liked Loretta. We got along really well.
Hey, honey, sorry I'm late.
It's the third time this week.
They saw her as the glue that brought the family back together, but there's something they didn't know about their wonderful stepmother, Loretta.
Where have you been?
Well, Marina called and she needed my help.
The truth, Loretta.
She was addicted to gambling.
You've been gambling again, haven't you?
No, I have not.
Oh, come on, Loretta. I have a bank statement here, okay? I know what's going on.
She was dumping money in Atlantic City like it was water.
Why?
Danny is aware of Loretta's gambling addiction.
It's okay.
Come on, let's see.
He knew her flaws, he knew her problems, he didn't care. He was totally in love with her.
In spite of their problems, the couple stays strong for 7 years.
Bye.
Until they reach an impasse.
Wasn't it great to see the kids again?
Sure was.
Danny loved being reconnected with his children, but they didn't live near him. They lived in Florida.
Wouldn't it be good to see more of them?
I told you, I'm not going to Florida.
It makes sense, Loretta.
Danny's dream was to move to Florida, and apparently Loretta didn't agree with that.
You want to go to Florida? You go right ahead.
Maybe I will.
Good. But I'm not going anywhere.
Loretta, come back here.
She wasn't happy. She said she wasn't coming. She wasn't moving to Florida.
Danny threatens to go on his own. The issue is unresolved when Loretta decides to go on a short road trip with her daughter and grandchildren on August 3rd, 2007.
It's me again.
The morning that they were supposed to leave,
Yay! Get out of there!
Loretta doesn't show up.
Where are you, Mom?
So the daughter calls her like 40 times, 100 times, and she still doesn't show up. And so finally, hours late, Loretta showed up, and she was totally flustered, totally upset, borderline hysterical.
Kids, get in the car. Nanny's here. Finally.
Loretta said that she and Danny had had a fight.
Danny and I had a fight, that's all. Come on, let's go. Come on.
That's why she was late.
Danny doesn't go on the trip, and when they return, he isn't at home either.
As far as everybody was concerned, he was planning on moving to Florida. So maybe he moved to Florida without telling anybody, and he did leave.
Loretta said that this woman showed up in a yellow Hummer with Florida tags, and Danny ran off to Florida with a younger woman.
When Danny's brother, Ray, visits just a week later, he's shocked to learn that no one is even looking for Danny.
And when he got there, Loretta was in one of the outbuildings, essentially taking inventory of Danny's possessions.
What are you doing, Loretta?
I'm just making a list of Danny's stuff.
You're selling his stuff?
He left me with nothing, Ray.
She told people she was selling things because she was in dire financial straits because Danny had left her for a younger woman.
I reported him missing to the police.
To Danny's family, nothing adds up.
Ray was traumatized. He absolutely felt in his bones that something was terribly wrong.
He's not missing. He's with that other woman.
And now I was ready to find out what happened.
It appears Danny Burrows has abandoned his wife Loretta and run off with a younger woman to his dream destination of Florida. But it's a story Danny's family never accepts.
Danny's family didn't give up, and they were very suspicious. They went to the police, and a missing persons report was opened. But not much was done with it.
Dad's 60. He's an adult, and he's free to move about the way he chooses. There really wasn't anything to investigate.
The family is convinced that Loretta is somehow involved.
When was the last sighting of your brother?
August 2nd.
Have a look at this.
I just knew. I knew she killed my father, and now I was mad.
It's Loretta's application for power of attorney. Signed by Danny.
They caught a real break in the case when they found a power of attorney that was signed by Danny supposedly before he left.
Except Danny's signature looks suspicious.
What's next?
I believe this is enough to get a warrant.
Great.
But no one is prepared for what they find.
I tried to keep him fresh.
When my mom had called and said that they found my father, and I was like, oh my God, where is he? And she said, in Loretta's closet.
Danny never makes it to Florida. Loretta makes sure of that the day before her family road trip.
She felt certain that he was going to pack up, go down to Florida, and take all his money with him and leave her with nothing. And she would stop at nothing to keep that from happening.
She stabbed him in the front, she stabbed him in the back, and then pushed him into the bathtub. And that was it.
It's why Loretta is flustered and running late that morning.
I would never have thought in a million years she was that evil.
She put Danny's body in the bathtub and left it there for 3 days. She said she was draining out the blood.
But the body can't stay there forever.
I mean, it's just mind-boggling that she could do something like this. Just the thought that this woman, this grandmother, chopped up her husband in little pieces.
She got out 2 large containers, like storage size. She put the upper torso in one container and the lower torso in another. And in a little handbag, she put his head.
There were 9 layers of plastic bags, fabric freshener, dryer sheets, air freshener beads, trying to cut down on the odor.
Danny's resting place is Loretta's bedroom closet.
There was no sign that my father had ever been in Florida at any point of any time. He never left New Jersey.
For 2 years, Loretta hides Danny's body before she can legally file for divorce. Then she seizes control of his assets.
No, not those, John. You take those.
She sold the house and got all of the proceeds, bought a new house, moved in, and didn't leave Danny behind. She didn't ask for help with moving those containers. She moved them all by herself.
Loretta keeps Danny's decomposing remains by her side for 6 years.
She'd go into the closet sometimes and get out the handbag with the head in it, and she would talk to Danny.
Hello, Danny. Guess what? We're moving.
I don't know what goes through somebody's mind to do that to somebody that they love.
When she was asked why for 6 years did she drag these remains around with her, she said, I couldn't bear to part with Danny. There's something loose in that head.
In 2015, Loretta Burroughs is found guilty of first-degree murder for the 2007 death of Daniel Burroughs. She is sentenced to 55 years in prison.
I mean, you can't have any empathy to anybody if you can do that to somebody. She has obviously no emotions at all.
In the end, the only thing between Loretta and Danny's money was Danny himself.
The judge in Loretta's case marveled at the fact that she would commit murder so that she would not have to move to Florida. And then he looked at her and said, You're really not gonna like where you're going now.
These deadly women wanted one man and one man only. Sierra Harp failed at entrapment, so turned to execution. Linda Riccio stalked a decent man to death on his doorstep. And Loretta Burrows couldn't part with the man she dismembered. All three women were driven by desperate obsession and took lethal measures because of their tainted love.
The call comes in just before dawn, the kind that doesn't ring loudly but still manages to shake an entire department awake. A routine traffic stop on a quiet stretch of Michigan road, headlights cutting through mist, a patrol car idling behind a sedan that looks like every other sedan that ever passed through this town. No one expects history to surface here. No one expects a cold case to breathe again on the shoulder of a road that has seen nothing but speeding tickets and late-night warnings. Yet this is how it begins, not with a scream, not with a chase, but with a pause, a question, a hesitation that lingers half a second too long. The officer steps out, boots crunching on gravel, hand resting near habit rather than fear. The driver's window lowers. A face appears, calm, cooperative, ordinary. The exchange is practiced. License. Registration. Where are you headed tonight? The answers come smoothly, almost rehearsed, and that's when something flickers. A detail that doesn't fit. A name that echoes faintly in a place it shouldn't. The officer doesn't know it yet, but 30 miles away, in a basement archive lined with dust and cardboard boxes, that same name has been waiting for 20 years. Michigan, 2004. The year freezes in the collective memory of this community like a photograph taken just before impact. Back then, the night was louder. Sirens. Radios crackling. A neighborhood sealed off with yellow tape that flapped uselessly in the cold wind. A body discovered where no body should have been. The kind of scene that turned streets into landmarks and neighbors into witnesses, even if they saw nothing at all. The case flooded the local news for weeks, then months, then thinned into occasional mentions, then silence. A cold case, stamped and shelved, its questions preserved but unanswered. The victim was known here. Not famous. Not powerful. Just familiar enough to matter. A routine life, a predictable schedule, a presence that left a hole precisely because it was ordinary. When the investigation began, the town leaned forward as one. Tips poured in. Alibis were offered. Suspicions bounced from house to house like a disease no one wanted to catch. Detectives worked the angles available to them at the time, chasing leads that went nowhere, collecting evidence that technology could not yet unlock. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into years. And slowly, the case cooled, not because it was solved, but because time demanded attention elsewhere. Back on the roadside, the officer returns to the patrol car, inputs the information, waits for the system to respond. The computer hums softly, indifferent to the weight of what it's about to reveal. When the result appears, it's not an alarm, not a dramatic red flag. It's a line of text that doesn't belong in a traffic stop. A reference. A notation. A connection so faint it could be dismissed by anyone not paying attention. But tonight, attention is sharp. The officer looks up, back at the car ahead. The driver waits, hands visible, engine running, the picture of compliance. Somewhere deep in the officer's mind, a memory stirs. A briefing years ago. A photo flashed on a screen. A case that never left the department, only moved further back in the room. The realization arrives slowly, heavily, like a door closing behind him. This is how cold cases survive. Not through noise, but through patience. Through the refusal of facts to disappear completely. Through systems designed to remember even when people forget. The town doesn't know any of this yet. It's still asleep, lights off, streets empty, unaware that a story it buried has just shifted underground. In homes across the county, people who once followed every update now dream undisturbed, believing that chapter is over. Believing that whatever happened back then stayed back then. But the night has changed. A single stop has disrupted the long silence, and somewhere between a blinking cursor and a set of taillights, the past has found a way back into the present. The cold case isn't solved yet. Not officially. Not on paper. But it's awake. And once awake, it does not go quietly. The patrol car's lights remain steady, not urgent, not flashing in warning, just present enough to remind everyone involved that this moment is being recorded by memory even if the camera hasn't caught up yet. The officer steps back toward the sedan, posture unchanged, voice even, asking the driver to switch off the engine. It sounds procedural. It sounds harmless. But inside the patrol car, a quiet request has already gone out over the radio, coded, controlled, designed not to spook the man sitting 10 feet away who still believes this night is routine. The driver complies easily. Too easily. The engine dies. The night rushes in to fill the silence. He smiles, a small one, polite, practiced. People who have lived clean lives know how to perform cooperation. So do people who have spent decades rehearsing it. The officer asks him to step out of the vehicle, just for a moment, standard procedure. Shoes hit the pavement. Hands are placed where they can be seen. Everything looks right. Everything feels wrong. As backup arrives, quietly, without sirens, the air tightens. The driver glances once toward the additional cruiser, then quickly looks away, as if noticing too much might invite questions. The officer asks him about his destination again. The answer changes slightly this time. Not dramatically. Just enough. A different street name. A different reason. The kind of shift most people wouldn't catch. The kind detectives train themselves never to miss. Miles away, in a station that hasn't slept in years, a supervisor pulls a file from a shelf that hasn't been touched since before smartphones, before social media, before the word DNA meant anything to the public. The folder is thick, edges worn soft by time. On the front, a name. The same name now sitting under Michigan stars, waiting beside a car that suddenly feels very small. The 2004 crime scene reassembles itself in memory with brutal clarity. A quiet residential block. Porch lights still on. Neighbors gathering in clusters, whispering, pointing, asking questions no one could answer. The victim found where they shouldn't have been, violence evident, motive unclear. No signs of forced entry. No witnesses who saw anything useful. The investigation stalled not from lack of effort, but from lack of direction. Too many possibilities. Too little certainty. Back then, the man now standing on the roadside was interviewed briefly. Just another name on a long list. A neighbor. A coworker. Someone adjacent to the victim's life, close enough to be relevant, distant enough to fade. He answered questions. Provided an alibi that could not be disproven at the time. He was cooperative, calm, forgettable. Exactly what the case didn't need him to be. Now, 2 decades later, the past is pressing in. The officer asks if there's anything in the vehicle he should know about. Weapons. Contraband. Anything illegal. The driver hesitates for a fraction of a second, then shakes his head. No, sir. Nothing like that. The words land flat, too measured. The officer nods, asks for consent to search. The request hangs there, suspended between rights and suspicion. Consent is given. The search begins methodically. Trunk first. Bags. Tools. Nothing remarkable. Then the back seat. A folder. Old papers. Receipts yellowed with age. And beneath them, something that doesn't belong. Something that shouldn't have survived this long. An object once listed in an evidence log as missing, unaccounted for, presumed lost to time. The officer's hand pauses. He doesn't react outwardly. He doesn't need to. His radio crackles softly as he calls it in. The driver watches from the curb, face unreadable. Whatever calculation is happening behind his eyes stays there. He has lived a long time without this moment catching up to him. He has learned patience. But patience has limits. At the station, the cold case team assembles with disbelief and focus in equal measure. Some of them were rookies when the case first broke. Some weren't even on the force yet. The file is spread across a table like a body being re-examined. Photos. Statements. Timelines. And now, suddenly, a new anchor point. A link that didn't exist yesterday. The community wakes to fragments. A social media post about a late-night arrest. A rumor about police activity on the highway. Nothing concrete yet. Just enough to stir curiosity. No one says the words out loud, but they feel them forming. Cold case. 2004, the one that never went away. The suspect is transported without incident. Fingerprints taken again. Photographs updated. A process repeated, but with entirely different gravity. He answers basic questions. Requests a lawyer when the tone shifts. The room changes with him. Friendly becomes formal. Time slows. Investigators sit across from him with a different posture than before. They are not searching blindly now. They are confirming. Testing. Watching for cracks. They reference details only someone involved would know. They observe micro-reactions, the tightening of the jaw, the delayed blink. They say nothing accusatory. They don't have to. The evidence is finally doing the talking. As dawn breaks, the town begins to sense it. News alerts buzz. A headline forms but doesn't yet publish. Michigan. 2004, cold case. Traffic stop. The words line up like dominoes waiting to fall. And somewhere, in a house that has carried unanswered questions for 20 years, the phone rings. Not with closure. Not with justice. But with something just as powerful. Movement. The silence that defined this case for so long has been broken. And once broken, it cannot be restored. The interview room holds its breath the way old buildings do at night, settling, listening, remembering. Fluorescent lights hum overhead, steady, unforgiving. The suspect sits with his hands folded, posture controlled, eyes fixed on a spot just beyond the detective's shoulders, as if he's learned that looking directly at the past invites questions he can't answer anymore. His name is spoken aloud for the first time in years, and it lands with weight. Names do that when they've been hiding inside files. The detectives don't rush. They know better. Pressure applied too early makes people defensive. Pressure applied slowly makes them talk. They start with neutral ground, employment history, addresses, timelines that sound boring but aren't. Every answer is measured against a memory frozen in 2004, against statements he once gave when the world still believed the truth would arrive quickly if everyone cooperated. Back then, the victim's house had felt ordinary. That was part of the horror. A place like any other. Curtains drawn. Door unlocked. The kind of home people enter without fear. When police arrived that night, the air had smelled wrong, heavy with something final. The scene offered no spectacle, just evidence that violence had occurred efficiently, personally, without witnesses. Whoever did it had not panicked. Panic leaves mess. This had been precise. In the interview room, a detective slides a photograph across the table, not the crime scene, not yet. A neighborhood photo. A street corner. The suspect's eyes flicker, just once. Recognition. The detective notes it without comment. Silence stretches. Silence has always been the most effective tool in this case. Outside, the morning news cycle accelerates. A brief mention on the radio. An anchor's cautious phrasing. Developing story. Viewers lean closer. Older residents stop what they're doing, feeling something shift without knowing why. The past has a way of tapping people on the shoulder when they least expect it. At headquarters, technicians reopen evidence boxes sealed so long ago that the tape cracks when peeled. Inside, items collected with hope and frustration, fibers that never matched anything, fingerprints smudged beyond usefulness, samples that once promised answers science couldn't yet deliver. Now they are handled with new reverence. Every object feels heavier, like it knows its time has come. The routine traffic stop becomes a point of obsession. Officers replay it frame by frame. What made the first officer hesitate? Why the request for backup felt necessary before anyone could explain it. Sometimes instinct precedes logic. Sometimes a case waits decades for the right set of eyes at the right moment. The suspect's attorney arrives mid-morning, sharp suit, calm demeanor, already aware this isn't an ordinary arrest. The tone in the room changes again. Questions become statements. Statements become carefully worded. The suspect speaks less. When he does, his voice stays even, but something underneath it strains, like a cable pulled too tight. Investigators pivot. They don't need a confession yet. They need corroboration. They pull phone records, old utility bills, credit card statements archived on systems barely maintained. They track movements not just on the night of the crime, but in the weeks after. Patterns emerge where none existed before. Trips that suddenly make sense. Purchases that no longer look random. Silence that now feels deliberate. In 2004, the community had filled the gaps with speculation. Affairs. Robberies gone wrong. Strangers passing through. Everyone had a theory because no one had an answer. Over time, theories hardened into stories, stories into folklore. The case became something people referenced without details, a shadow at the edge of town history. Now that shadow is moving. A former detective, long retired, gets a call. He remembers the case instantly. Some cases never leave you. He drives to the station, slower than he used to, carrying decades of second-guessing. He points to a note in the file no one ever followed up on, not because it wasn't important, but because there was nothing to attach it to. Until now. The suspect is placed in a holding cell. Alone. No mirror. No distractions. Just time. Time has always been his greatest ally. He survived because years passed and attention drifted. But time, investigators know, can also turn on you. It wears down certainty. It erodes rehearsed stories. It introduces doubt where confidence once lived. Across town, the victim's family gathers quietly. No cameras. No statements. Just people sitting together, unsure what to say, afraid to say too much. Hope is dangerous after so long. They've learned that. But so is disbelief. They exist in the space between, waiting for facts to arrive and tell them how to feel. By afternoon, lab results begin to come in, not full conclusions, but indicators. Enough to justify warrants. Enough to reopen doors that have been closed since the early 2000s. A search team heads to a property the suspect once owned, long sold, long forgotten. The ground has been disturbed more than once over the years. Renovations. Landscaping. Progress layered over secrets. As shovels hit dirt, the sky darkens. Not dramatically. Just enough to remind everyone that nothing about this case has ever been clean or simple. Each sound feels amplified. Each pause feels significant. Investigators exchange looks, saying nothing, conserving reactions for later. The day ends without resolution, but with momentum. And momentum, after 20 years of stillness, feels almost violent in its speed. The case is no longer asleep. It is awake, stretching, demanding attention. That night, the suspect lies awake on a thin mattress, staring at a ceiling he doesn't recognize. For the first time in decades, there is no distance between him and what he did. No buffer of years. No comforting belief that the world has moved on. It hasn't. It was just waiting. Night falls without ceremony, the way it always has in this town, but nothing about it feels routine anymore. Patrol cars idle longer than usual. Lights stay on in offices where darkness used to signal closure. The case hums in the background of every conversation, unspoken but present, like a low electrical current running through the building. By dawn, warrants are signed. Paperwork moves fast when history is pressing on your back. The search team returns to the old property with fresh authority, tape fluttering in the wind as boundaries are drawn where none existed before. Neighbors watch from behind curtains, pretending not to notice, pretending this is about something else. Everyone recognizes the choreography. This is what it looks like when the past comes home. The soil gives reluctantly. Layers peel back one at a time, each shovel stroke erasing a year, a memory, a renovation meant to overwrite what once happened there. Investigators work methodically, refusing to rush. Rushing is how things get missed. And this case has missed enough. In the holding cell, the suspect is offered breakfast. He barely touches it. Food tastes different when time collapses. When the distance between then and now disappears. A guard makes a note of it, not because it's unusual, but because everything feels worth noting today. Back at headquarters, a whiteboard fills with connections that once seemed speculative and now feel inevitable. Addresses intersect. Timelines overlap. Names that never mattered before suddenly matter a great deal. The routine traffic stop, the casual moment that triggered everything, replays again and again in briefings. The officer's hesitation. The choice to run the plate one more time. The pause before letting the driver go. These are the seconds that change decades. Forensics receives priority access. Old samples are tested against new databases, algorithms doing what human memory never could. The waiting is unbearable, but it's different from before. This waiting has direction. It feels like standing on a platform just before a train arrives, the vibration in the rails signaling something massive and unavoidable. The media presence grows carefully, cautiously. No one wants to get ahead of the facts. But headlines leak anyway. Michigan 2004 cold case reopened. Routine stop leads to major break. The language is restrained, but the implication is not. Phones buzz across town. People check dates, places, wondering where they were, what they remember, what they might have forgotten. The victim's family receives updates through an intermediary, a detective chosen for steadiness, for restraint. He doesn't promise anything. He doesn't speculate. He delivers facts in small, controlled doses. Even so, the air in the room shifts with each sentence. 20 years of holding breath has changed their lungs. They are not sure how to inhale anymore. At the suspect's former workplace, investigators ask questions that make people uncomfortable. Memories resurface reluctantly. A comment that seemed harmless at the time. A habit no one questioned. The way he offered help too quickly, stayed too late, lingered when others left. In hindsight, everything looks like a warning sign. At the time, it was just a man being reliable. The retired detective returns again, flipping through his old notes, tracing the path he once walked with fewer tools and less patience. He remembers how the case slipped, not all at once, but gradually, as resources were redirected, as leads dried up, as hope became too expensive to maintain. Seeing it move again feels like both vindication and regret. Midday brings the first confirmation. Not the kind that closes a case, but the kind that changes posture, tone, expectation. A partial match. Enough to justify holding. Enough to quiet internal doubts. Enough to make the suspect's lawyer request a private conversation. In that room, behind closed doors, voices remain low. The suspect listens more than he speaks. He asks about evidence without asking about the victim. It doesn't go unnoticed. It never does. The attorney's confidence adjusts slightly, recalibrating to a reality where control is no longer guaranteed. The search site yields nothing dramatic. No bones. No weapons. Just disturbed earth and the certainty that something was moved, altered, concealed. Sometimes absence is louder than discovery. Sometimes it tells you exactly how careful someone was. As evening approaches, detectives gather again, exhaustion creeping in around the edges. Coffee goes cold. Chairs scrape floors. But no one leaves. Momentum holds them in place. They understand how fragile this moment is. How easily it could fracture if mishandled. The suspect is moved to a different cell. Standard procedure. But he notices the difference. Notices the extra glance from the guard. Notices the change in tone. He has lived off subtle shifts his entire life. He knows when the balance has tipped. Outside, rain begins to fall. Not hard. Not cleansing. Just enough to darken sidewalks and make reflections shimmer under streetlights. The town looks different in this light, older somehow, marked by years it pretended weren't there. That night, a technician stays late to rerun a test, unsatisfied with preliminary data. She has learned that cold cases don't reward shortcuts. They reward persistence. She watches the machine cycle again, numbers resolving into something unmistakable. Her breath catches, just slightly. She prints the report and sets it aside, hands steady despite the weight of it. By the time the building empties, the case is no longer a question of if. It's a question of how much, how far, how deeply the truth reaches. The routine traffic stop has become an entry point, a crack in a timeline sealed shut for 2 decades. Somewhere between midnight and morning, the past finishes crossing the distance it's been traveling for 20 years. And when it arrives, it does not ask permission. It never does. Morning arrives without relief. The kind of gray dawn that doesn't reset anything, only exposes what stayed hidden overnight. Inside the precinct, the air is stale with recycled breath and unfinished thoughts. No one slept well. No one pretended to. The report lands on the conference table like a controlled detonation. Printed pages. Clean fonts. Clinical language. But the meaning underneath is brutal. The partial match is no longer partial. The numbers align. Probability collapses into certainty. This isn't coincidence. This isn't contamination. This is the past leaving fingerprints on the present. No one celebrates. Celebration feels obscene here. Instead, there is a collective tightening, shoulders, jaws, voices dropping half a register. This is the moment cold cases wait for. The moment when doubt finally runs out of places to hide. The lead detective reads the results twice, not because he doesn't understand them, but because he remembers how many times understanding arrived too early before. He remembers false dawns. Mislabels. Samples that promised more than they delivered. He refuses to let hope sprint ahead of proof. Not again. Across town, the suspect sits upright on the edge of his bunk, hands folded, posture controlled. He knows something has shifted. He can feel it in the way the guards no longer make small talk, in the way doors open and close with a firmer finality. He has spent years reading rooms, reading people, calibrating himself to remain invisible. Now the room has begun to read him back. Interrogation is scheduled but not rushed. Pressure applied too quickly creates noise. They want silence. They want space. They want him to talk because he believes he should, not because he feels forced. This is a long game played by people who finally have time on their side. The victim's name is spoken more frequently now, no longer whispered. In briefings. In reports. In conversations that used to orbit around abstractions. She becomes real again, not as a case number or a photograph, but as a presence re-entering rooms she was pushed out of years ago. The effect is unsettling. Necessary. Overdue. Media trucks gather at a respectful distance, lenses pointed, engines idling. Producers argue quietly about phrasing, about whether solved is premature, about how much certainty is enough for a headline. The public doesn't hear those debates. They just feel the tremor moving through the story, the sense that something sealed is cracking open. At the old neighborhood, people talk in fragments. On porches. In driveways. Over fences that have been replaced twice since 2004. Someone remembers seeing him walk his dog late at night. Someone else remembers lending him tools. A third remembers nothing at all and is disturbed by how normal that feels. Memory reshapes itself under pressure, and no one is sure which version they can trust. Inside the interview room, the detective begins without drama. No accusations. No theatrics. Just time, dates, locations. The suspect answers calmly, carefully, like someone reciting lines he's rehearsed for years. His voice never rises. His eyes rarely blink. He presents himself as cooperative, helpful, confused by the attention. It's a performance refined over decades. Then the detective slides the report across the table. Not aggressively. Not ceremoniously. Just enough for the suspect to see the heading. The formatting. The words he hoped would never exist. The room changes temperature. Not physically. Emotionally. A subtle contraction, like air leaving a sealed space. The suspect doesn't reach for the paper. He doesn't need to. He understands the language. He understands probability. He understands what happens when science outpaces storytelling. For the first time, he asks a question that isn't logistical. He asks how long the sample was kept. The answer is simple. Honest. Devastating. At the lab, technicians work through secondary confirmations, each one reinforcing the same conclusion. No anomalies. No errors. The data is clean. The kind of clean that only comes from time doing its work patiently, without emotion. The retired detective calls in, voice rough with disbelief. He listens as the new team explains the chain of evidence, the advancements that finally closed the gap he couldn't cross. He feels pride in something heavier. A recognition that justice did not fail, it waited. And waiting has a cost. As afternoon settles in, the prosecutor is briefed. Strategy replaces speculation. Charges are outlined carefully, conservatively. There will be no overreach. No shortcuts. This case has survived too long to be undone by impatience. The suspect is returned to his cell. Alone. No television. No distractions. Just walls and time. The same tools he once used against everyone else. Now turned inward. He lies back, staring at the ceiling, calculating futures that no longer branch the way they used to. Across the city, the victim's family gathers without being asked. They sit together, not knowing what to say, not needing to. The silence feels different now. Not empty. Expectant. Heavy with something approaching resolution but not yet shaped like peace. As evening approaches, the lead detective steps outside for the first time all day. The sky is low. The air smells like rain and exhaust. He knows this isn't the end. He knows confessions are rare and trials are brutal and truth is often fragmented even when proven. But he also knows this: the case has crossed a threshold. The cold case is no longer cold. It's awake. And it's not done speaking. Night presses in again, but this time it carries momentum instead of uncertainty. The city doesn't know it yet, but something irreversible has begun to move beneath its routines, beneath the headlights and late dinners and closed storefronts. Inside the precinct, the case breathes on its own now. It no longer needs to be coaxed forward. It pulls. The suspect is brought back into the interview room after hours alone with his thoughts. The lights are the same. The table is the same. The chair still wobbles slightly if you lean too far back. Familiarity was once his armor. Tonight, it betrays him. He sits, hands flat, shoulders squared, as if posture alone might stabilize the ground beneath him. The detective does not speak immediately. Silence is not absence here. It's pressure without fingerprints. Minutes stretch. The clock on the wall ticks loudly enough to become a presence. The suspect clears his throat once, then stills. He has waited years for moments like this, rehearsed them in his head, always ending with himself walking away unnoticed. But the rehearsal never accounted for this kind of quiet. When the detective finally speaks, it's not about the crime. It's about weather. About a storm that rolled through Michigan in the spring of 2004. Heavy rain. Flooded intersections. Power outages in pockets of the city. The suspect nods. He remembers storms. Everyone remembers storms. Safe territory. Then the detective asks where he was that night. The answer comes easily. Too easily. A routine recitation of alibis that have aged well because they were never challenged. Work. Home. Television. Sleep. The words are clean, almost polished. He has had decades to keep them that way. The detective listens, eyes down, making notes that don't correspond to what's being said. He is mapping tone, pacing, hesitation. He is counting breaths. When the suspect finishes, there is another pause. Then the detective asks him to repeat it, starting from the moment the rain began. The suspect hesitates this time. Just a fraction. Barely measurable. But in a room designed to catch fractions, it's enough. He starts again, adjusts details he didn't know were details, shifts time forward, then back. Nothing overt. Nothing dramatic. Just the subtle erosion that comes when memory is forced to perform under new light. Across town, evidence technicians revisit old photographs of the scene. The images are flat, color-faded, but they still carry weight. Mud along a curb. Tire tracks that were dismissed as incidental. A footprint partially erased by rain, logged and shelved. They overlay new data, new measurements, realizing how much had been waiting inside what was already there. The neighborhood where it happened has changed names twice. New residents walk dogs along sidewalks that once hosted vigils. They don't know the details, only the shape of the story: a woman gone, a question unanswered. Now rumors move faster than facts. Phones buzz. Group chats fill with speculation. Someone posts an old yearbook photo. Someone else deletes a comment before sending it. The past is no longer polite enough to stay buried. Back in the interview room, the detective shifts tactics. He talks about proximity. About how crimes don't always begin with strangers. About how trust can be the most efficient cover. He doesn't look at the suspect when he says this. He lets the words exist on their own. The suspect's jaw tightens. He asks if he's being accused of something. The detective answers honestly. Not yet. He explains the process. The science. The steps that still need to be taken. He emphasizes patience. The suspect nods, relieved for a moment, mistaking transparency for weakness. Then the detective mentions the traffic stop. Just in passing. Just enough. The suspect's eyes flick up. The mask slips, then snaps back into place. He asks what traffic stop. The detective shrugs lightly, as if it's unimportant. Says sometimes unrelated things open doors you didn't know were locked. The room shifts again. The suspect leans back, testing the chair, reclaiming space. He says he's tired. He says he wants a lawyer. The detective agrees immediately. No resistance. No persuasion. He stands, gathers his notes, and leaves the room exactly as it was when he entered. Outside, he exhales for the first time in hours. He knows what that reaction means. He knows fear when it introduces itself under the guise of control. The prosecutor receives an update before dawn. Not a summary. A narrative. Timelines aligning. Behavioral markers. The kind of story that doesn't rely on a single revelation but on accumulation. She listens, asks precise questions, flags potential weaknesses. This will not be a case built on drama. It will be built on inevitability. In a small house across the city, the victim's sibling sits at a kitchen table long after midnight, hands wrapped around a mug gone cold. The phone lies face down. They haven't been told much, only that progress is real this time. They think about how many times those words were offered before, how hope learned to brace itself. Still, something feels different. The silence no longer feels like neglect. It feels like preparation. The suspect spends the night awake. Prison has taught him how to endure discomfort, but this is different. This is anticipation without control. He replays conversations, recalculates expressions, wonders which version of himself was recorded most clearly. He realizes too late that the danger was never exposure. It was familiarity. Being seen too often, too close, for too long. Morning returns with purpose. Warrants are drafted. Additional samples requested. Old associates contacted quietly, carefully. No one wants leaks. No one wants spectacle. This story has waited 20 years. It can wait a little longer to be told correctly. In the precinct hallway, someone pins a new timeline to the board. The victim's name sits at the top, printed in bold. Underneath, events stack up, no longer scattered but aligned. The line between past and present grows thin enough to cut. Outside, traffic moves as it always has. Brake lights flare. Radios murmur. A routine stop happens 3 miles away, unnoticed, ordinary. No one connects it yet. No one knows how many stories hinge on moments that look exactly like every other moment. The cold case doesn't announce its progress. It advances quietly, methodically, through rooms and memories and files that once felt inert. It sharpens focus. It narrows options. And somewhere between the ticking clock and the rising sun, the truth inches closer to the surface, not with urgency, but with certainty. By the 7th movement of this story, the investigation has shed its early hesitation and taken on a different weight. Not speed. Gravity. Every action now carries consequence, every choice measured against what cannot be undone. The case is no longer chasing answers. It is confirming them. The lab results arrive without ceremony. No fanfare. Just an email time-stamped before most of the city wakes up. The detective reads it once, then again, slower the second time, not because it's unclear, but because clarity can be disorienting when you've lived too long without it. The numbers align. The markers repeat. Probability collapses into certainty. What was once a theory now occupies the solid ground of fact. He doesn't smile. No one does. There is no victory in this room, only recognition. A quiet understanding that a line has been crossed, and that crossing it will change everything that follows. The evidence, forgotten for years in controlled darkness, has finally found its voice. Fibers once dismissed as environmental noise now speak with precision. A partial print, long considered unusable, matches with an arrogance that feels almost cruel. Technology didn't invent the truth. It only removed the excuses. Across the table, the prosecutor studies the report, pen hovering above legal pads already crowded with notes. She builds the case in her head before it ever reaches a courtroom. She sees the defenses that will be raised, the doubts that will be planted deliberately, strategically. Time will be used against them. Memory will be questioned. Motive will be blurred. She anticipates all of it and keeps reading. The suspect is brought back in that afternoon. Not for interrogation. For notification. Procedure demands restraint, clarity, professionalism. He is informed that the investigation has escalated, that charges are being considered pending final review. The words are neutral. The tone even. Still, the effect is immediate. He nods. He says he understands. He asks for water. His hands shake as he lifts the cup, just slightly, enough to be noticed by those trained to notice such things. His eyes scan the room, searching not for exits, but for leverage. There is none left. Outside the station, the first whispers reach the public. Not names. Not details. Just confirmation that the Michigan 2004 cold case is active again in a way it never has been before. News vans idle at a distance, engines running, reporters rehearsing questions they won't yet be allowed to ask. The story stretches awake, muscles stiff from years of disuse. In the old neighborhood, reactions are uneven. Some residents feel vindicated, others unsettled. People revisit conversations they once dismissed, encounters that felt harmless at the time. The mind rewrites memory under pressure, searching for warnings that might have been missed. Guilt spreads quietly, even among those who did nothing wrong. The victim's family receives a call they never fully believed would come. It is careful. Deliberate. Full of caveats and caution. But the message is clear enough to land. There is movement. There is evidence. There is a name that now carries weight instead of speculation. They hang up and sit together in silence. No tears yet. No relief. Just the strange sensation of standing at the edge of something they imagined for so long it began to feel fictional. Justice, when it finally approaches, doesn't look like closure. It looks like exposure. The detective returns to the timeline board. He adjusts dates, replaces question marks with statements. The board has become a map rather than a maze. Paths that once looped endlessly now point in one direction. He knows this is the moment cases either hold or fracture. Every assumption must be rechecked. Every step retraced. Confidence is a liability if it isn't earned repeatedly. The suspect's attorney files motions immediately. Suppress this. Exclude that. Challenge the chain of custody. The arguments are expected, procedural, necessary. The system demands resistance to prove itself. The prosecutor welcomes it. She knows the case will not survive on narrative alone. It will survive on detail. Night falls again, and with it comes the familiar Michigan cold, sharp and unyielding. Somewhere, a light burns in the evidence room where technicians continue their work, cross-referencing, documenting, preparing for scrutiny that will be relentless and public. Every label must be perfect. Every record intact. This case has waited too long to stumble now. In his cell, the suspect lies awake, staring at a ceiling he has memorized. He understands the shift even if he refuses to name it. The distance between him and the past has collapsed. The routines that once insulated him now feel fragile. He has survived by blending in, by becoming forgettable. The irony settles in slowly, it was the ordinary nature of his life that allowed the extraordinary to finally catch him. The seventh part of this story does not explode. It tightens. It draws the net closer, not with urgency, but with assurance. The cold case has crossed the threshold where retreat is no longer possible. From here on, the truth does not chase anyone. It waits. And it knows it will be met. The pressure changes in ways that are almost imperceptible at first. Not louder, not faster, just closer. The case has reached the stage where movement happens behind closed doors, where the real work no longer needs witnesses. What once depended on memory now relies on documentation. What once felt fragile has hardened into structure. Detectives begin the slow, deliberate process of reconstruction. Not the crime itself, that has already been charted, but the years surrounding it. Every address the suspect lived at. Every job held, every gap unexplained, every relationship that overlapped the timeline like a shadow. Patterns emerged that were invisible when viewed in isolation. Now, arranged end to end, they tell a story that resists coincidence. Phone records from the early 2000s are resurrected with difficulty, pulled from systems never meant to be reopened. They don't provide clarity so much as context, pings, gaps, silences that align too neatly with known events. A call made, then nothing. A device powered off at a time when nothing should have been hidden. Small absences accumulate. Absence, investigators know, is often more revealing than presence. Witnesses are contacted again, some for the first time in decades. Voices crack on the other end of the line. People struggle to orient themselves in a conversation they never expected to revisit. They apologize reflexively, unsure for what. They remember fragments now sharpened by relevance, a car parked oddly, a look held too long, a behavior dismissed as awkward instead of alarming. No single recollection carries weight on its own. Together, they press inward. The suspect is moved to a different holding unit. Not for punishment. For management. The walls are the same color, the routines unchanged, but the implication is unmistakable. He is no longer peripheral to the system. He is central to it. He notices how guards address him now, how paperwork takes longer, how requests are acknowledged but no longer indulged. He has become defined by a case number instead of a name. His attorney advises silence. Absolute, unwavering silence. It is good advice. It comes too late to matter. Silence only protects what has not already been recorded. Media coverage intensifies without ever crossing into chaos. Anchors choose their words carefully. Breakthrough. Major development. Long-awaited answers. They avoid speculation, but speculation fills the gaps anyway. The phrase, routine traffic stop, becomes shorthand for fate, for randomness, for the uncomfortable idea that resolution can arrive without warning. The community responds unevenly. Some want every detail immediately, others recoil from the attention. A few insist they always suspected something, though their certainty only surfaces now. Memory reshapes itself under public pressure. People want to be on the right side of history, even if history never noticed them before. In the prosecutor's office, preparation becomes obsession. Exhibits are assembled, disassembled, assembled again. Language is scrutinized. Every sentence must withstand attack. This is not about proving guilt to those who already believe it. It is about proving inevitability to those determined not to. She practices the opening statement alone in her office late at night, speaking into an empty room, adjusting cadence, removing adjectives that invite doubt. She does not dramatize. She does not accuse prematurely. She lays out facts like stepping stones across deep water. One misstep could sink everything. The victim's family navigates a different kind of preparation. They are briefed on procedures, timelines, expectations. They are warned about what will be said publicly, what will be questioned aggressively, what will be revisited without mercy. They listen, nod, absorb. The past is no longer abstract. It is scheduled. They return home and open boxes they never fully closed. Letters. Photos. Objects whose meaning has shifted over time. Grief resurfaces not as pain, but as density, a weight that settles into the chest and stays. This is not closure approaching. It is confrontation. Late one evening, a final report lands on the detective's desk. Supplemental analysis. Corroboration. The last loose thread tightened without ceremony. He reads it, signs it, forwards it. The chain completes itself. There is nothing left to wait for. The arrest warrant is approved the following morning. When it is served, there is no spectacle. No resistance. The suspect complies as he always has, hands placed where instructed, eyes forward. The routine that once protected him now escorts him forward into consequence. Cameras capture the moment from a distance. The image will circulate, dissected frame by frame, but the truth of it exists elsewhere, in the quiet understanding that this has been a long time coming. As he is led away, he glances once toward the street, toward the ordinary world continuing uninterrupted. Cars pass. People walk. A routine traffic stop unfolds 2 blocks away, unnoticed. Life does not pause for reckoning. It never has. The cold case has moved beyond revival. It has entered resolution, though resolution proves to be a misleading word. Nothing feels finished. Instead, everything feels exposed. And in that exposure, the story changes again, not into something louder, but into something that can no longer be ignored. By the 9th passage, the story has entered a phase where time behaves differently. Days accelerate while years slow to a crawl. The arrest has happened, the warrant served, the name spoken aloud at last, yet nothing feels complete. Resolution, it turns out, is not a door you walk through. It's a corridor you're forced to stand in, listening to echoes from both directions. The arraignment is brief, procedural, stripped of drama by design. The suspect stands before the judge, expression neutral, posture rehearsed. Charges are read. Words like homicide, premeditation, aggravating factors land with clinical precision. He enters a plea through counsel. Not guilty. Expected. Necessary. The system exhales and resets its posture. The long work begins. Outside the courthouse, cameras cluster but keep their distance. Reporters speak softly, as if volume might distort the gravity of what's unfolding. They recap timelines, reference the traffic stop again and again, marveling at coincidence while sidestepping the uncomfortable truth that chance only opens doors, someone still has to walk through them. Inside, the prosecutor files motions that signal intent. No shortcuts. No plea negotiations whispered behind closed doors. This case will go the distance. Not out of stubbornness, but out of obligation. Too much time has passed. Too many assumptions calcified into doubt. The only acceptable outcome now is one that withstands light from every angle. The defense begins its counter-narrative immediately. They speak of contamination. Of memory decay. Of a rush to judgment fueled by modern tools applied retroactively. They plant seeds designed to bloom months from now, long after headlines have moved on. Their goal is not to convince today. It is to exhaust tomorrow. Detectives prepare to testify. They review notes taken years apart by different hands, align terminology, reconcile methods that evolved over decades. Policing changed. Standards changed. What once passed as thorough now requires justification. They welcome the scrutiny. The case deserves nothing less. The victim's family sits through briefings that feel heavier than testimony ever could. They are told where to sit, when to enter, when to leave. They are warned about graphic language, about defense strategies that will reframe the victim as circumstance rather than person. They are encouraged to take breaks, to step outside if needed. They do not plan to. At home, they receive messages from strangers. Some supportive, some invasive, a few cruel. Attention, once desired in the absence of answers, now feels sharp-edged. They learn quickly that public empathy is unpredictable, often conditional. They retreat inward, leaning on routines that survived the years when nothing moved at all. In the holding facility, the accused adjusts to his new status. He is no longer a mystery. He is a case study. Other inmates recognize the media cadence in his file, the slow-burning notoriety of a cold case finally lit. Some keep their distance. Others probe for details, testing for weakness, curiosity masked as camaraderie. He offers nothing. Silence remains his last strategy. Evidence is transported, catalogued, sealed again. Each transfer logged, witnessed, verified. Chain of custody becomes a narrative of its own, one that must withstand cross-examination line by line. The lab analysts prepare for court, rehearsing explanations that translate complexity into certainty without oversimplifying. They know how thin the margin is between clarity and confusion. As trial dates are set, postponed, reset, the community cycles through anticipation and fatigue. Interest spikes, dips, resurges. Some people disengage, unwilling to reopen old wounds. Others attend hearings out of a need to see it with their own eyes, to confirm that the story they lived through is real, that it didn't dissolve into myth. Late one evening, the detective returns to the original scene alone. No tape. No lights. Just the place itself, unchanged in the ways that matter. He stands where it began and lets the silence settle. He thinks about the version of himself who first stood here decades ago, younger, less certain, believing that effort alone guaranteed answers. He understands now that effort is only part of it. Time is the other half. And time is indifferent. The ninth part of this story is not about revelation. It is about endurance. About the long stretch between accusation and truth, where certainty must be defended daily against erosion. The cold case has come this far not because it was loud, but because it refused to disappear. What remains now is judgment. Not the kind delivered quickly, but the kind assembled piece by piece, word by word, under oath. The corridor stretches on. And everyone involved steps forward, knowing there is no turning back. By the 10th passage, the case has settled into a rhythm that feels both relentless and fragile. Everything depends on precision now. Not emotion. Not outrage. Precision. The courtroom becomes the center of gravity, a place where years compress into hours and every word is weighed for impact it may not reveal until much later. Jury selection begins quietly, almost deceptively so. Ordinary citizens file in carrying coffee cups, jackets, assumptions they didn't know they had. They answer questions about trust, about police, about memory. Some are dismissed within minutes. Others linger, unaware they are being evaluated not for what they know, but for how they will listen. This case does not need passion. It needs endurance. The prosecutor watches closely. She notes who flinches at the phrase, cold case, who leans forward at the mention of DNA, who looks away when the traffic stop is described. She understands the psychology of patience. She knows this trial will unfold slowly, deliberately, and not everyone is built for that kind of waiting. When opening statements finally arrive, the room tightens. The prosecutor does not raise her voice. She does not dramatize. She tells the story as if it were inevitable, as if the facts assembled themselves over time because they had nowhere else to go. She speaks of 2004 without nostalgia, without embellishment. A life interrupted. An investigation constrained by its era. Evidence that waited. Technology that caught up. A routine traffic stop that did not create truth, but uncovered it. The defense follows with equal calm. They caution against certainty, against hindsight, against trusting modern interpretations of old data. They suggest coincidence. They suggest contamination. They suggest that time itself has reshaped the story into something more convincing than it deserves to be. Their tone is reasonable. That is their most effective tool. Witnesses begin. The first are procedural, officers, technicians, archivists. They establish foundation. Dates. Locations. Methods. The jury listens, adjusting to the cadence of testimony that moves neither fast nor slow, but steadily forward. This is not a case built on a single revelation. It is built on accumulation. Then the lab analysts take the stand. They explain processes that did not exist when the crime occurred. They translate probabilities into language that avoids both fear and exaggeration. They are careful, meticulous, aware that one poorly chosen phrase could undo years of work. Under cross-examination, they remain unshaken. Science does not need to defend itself aggressively. It only needs to remain consistent. The traffic stop is introduced without spectacle. Dashcam footage plays. Grainy. Unremarkable. A car pulled over. A conversation exchanged. Nothing about it signals consequence. That is the point. The jury sees what everyone else saw that night: routine. Ordinary. Safe. And then they are told what that stop connected to, and the room changes. The defendant watches without reaction. He has trained himself not to flinch. Still, there is a moment, brief, almost imperceptible, when his eyes lower as the timeline converges. The past and present touch. He breaks eye contact with the screen. The victim's family sits through every session. They have learned how to breathe quietly, how to brace without stiffening. When photographs are shown, they do not look away. They have already lived with these images in their minds for years. Seeing them here only confirms what they never doubted, that the loss was real, and that it mattered. Outside the courthouse, the world continues with startling indifference. Lunch hours come and go. Weather shifts. Traffic snarls and clears. Inside, a different clock is running, one that measures truth in increments of credibility rather than seconds. As the day ends, the judge reminds the jury of their duty. Do not discuss. Do not research. Do not rush. The words hang heavy in the room. This is not a case that forgives shortcuts. That night, the detective reviews his testimony notes again. He does not fear mistakes. He fears omission. He understands now that the danger is not being wrong, but being incomplete. He adjusts nothing. The story, at this point, must stand on its own. The 10th part of this narrative does not offer resolution. It offers exposure. Every assumption laid bare. Every process open to scrutiny. The cold case, once hidden by time, now exists entirely in the open, examined from all sides. And as the courtroom lights dim and the doors close for the night, the truth remains suspended in the air, not yet delivered, but no longer denied. By the 11th passage, the trial reaches the point where momentum can no longer be mistaken for direction. Everything that could be introduced has been introduced. Everything that could be questioned has been questioned. What remains is synthesis, the slow, deliberate merging of fact, memory, and consequence into something the jury must finally carry on their own. Closing arguments arrive without drama, but with weight. The prosecutor stands and does not pace. She does not gesture broadly. She speaks as if addressing a single listener rather than 12, her voice measured, controlled. She walks the jury back through the years, not chronologically, but logically. Evidence to opportunity. Opportunity to proximity. Proximity to behavior. She reminds them that cold cases are not weak cases. They are patient ones. She emphasizes that time did not soften the truth. It sharpened it. She returns, one last time, to the traffic stop. The ordinariness of it. The randomness. The way justice did not arrive through brilliance or confession, but through routine professionalism and systems that remembered what people could not. She does not ask for outrage. She asks for recognition. For acknowledgement that the story they have heard did not invent itself. It waited. The defense follows, equally composed. They speak of doubt as a responsibility, not an obstacle. They remind the jury that certainty is seductive, that narratives grow smoother with repetition. They argue that coincidence has been mistaken for causation, that modern tools have been retrofitted onto an old story that cannot fully support them. They do not accuse investigators of malice. They suggest momentum. The idea that once a direction was chosen, everything else bent to support it. The jury listens. They have learned how to listen here. Not just to words, but to gaps between them. When deliberations begin, the courtroom empties slowly. The defendant is led away without resistance. The family remains seated long after they are allowed to leave, as if movement might fracture something fragile. Outside, reporters wait, cameras ready, scripts prepared for outcomes that do not yet exist. Inside the jury room, time stretches again. They review exhibits carefully. They replay testimony. They argue, then pause, then argue differently. Some focus on science. Others on behavior. Some on absence. Others on pattern. Doubt is not dismissed. It is examined, weighed, turned over until it either dissolves or hardens. Hours pass. Then more. When the verdict is finally reached, it is not unanimous in emotion, but it is unanimous in conclusion. The bailiff knocks. The courtroom refills. Everyone rises. The air feels denser than it did before. The foreperson stands, hands steady, voice clear. The verdict is read. Guilty. The word does not echo. It lands. The sound it makes is internal. The victim's family does not celebrate. There are tears, yes, but they are quiet, controlled, almost restrained by disbelief. This moment existed for so long only as a possibility that its arrival feels unreal. Justice does not erase loss. It reframes it. It gives it edges instead of blur. The defendant absorbs the verdict without visible reaction. No outburst. No collapse. The discipline that once allowed him to live unnoticed now carries him through consequence. He is sentenced later, formally, thoroughly. The language of the law is unambiguous. Time, once his ally, is now fixed against him. In the days that follow, the town exhales. Not in relief, but in adjustment. The story that once hovered unresolved now has an ending, and endings require recalibration. Conversations change. The case becomes reference instead of rumor. A lesson instead of a wound. The detective returns the file to storage one last time. Not to the cold case shelf, but to archives marked resolved. He pauses before closing the drawer, hand resting on the edge. He knows this will not be the case he remembers most vividly. It will be the one that changed how he understands waiting. The final part of this story does not feel like closure. It feels like acknowledgement. That some truths arrive late, but not too late to matter. That patience is not passive. That justice, when it comes, often arrives quietly, through ordinary moments that carry extraordinary weight. The cold case is solved. But its echo remains, steady, instructive, and impossible to forget. By the time anyone realizes the case has crossed an invisible line, it is already too late to pretend it is dormant again. Part 12 lives in that aftermath, not the moment of discovery, not the drama of arrest, but the slow, relentless tightening that follows once a cold case begins to generate heat. Inside the state lab, a technician signs out evidence that hasn't seen light since the early 2000s. Cardboard boxes softened by time. Tape yellowed, edges curling. Each label handwritten by someone who assumed, quietly, that the box would never be opened again. The room smells faintly of disinfectant and dust, a mix of progress and neglect. Gloves snap into place. Procedures begin. There is no reverence here, only discipline. Respect shows itself through precision. Technology has changed. What once returned silence now returns data. Not conclusions. Not certainty. But direction. A sample long dismissed as inconclusive is fed into a system that didn't exist when the victim was alive. The machine does not care about theories, reputations, or elapsed years. It compares. It searches. It waits. Then it speaks in numbers and probabilities that force people to sit down before standing back up. The name from the traffic stop surfaces again, no longer as a footnote but as a variable. Cross-referenced. Contextualized. The distance between coincidence and pattern begins to collapse. Detectives work quietly. There is no press briefing. No leaks. They know the damage premature noise can do. Instead, they reconstruct a timeline with the patience of people who have learned the cost of haste. They place the suspect where he said he was, then where he didn't say he was. They check employment records. Phone logs. Old addresses. Each confirmation removes a layer of deniability. Each contradiction sharpens the picture. The man continues his routine, unaware of the net tightening around memories he believed had dissolved. He goes to work. He shops. He waves to neighbors who trust him for reasons they can't articulate. He sleeps without nightmares. That, more than anything, unsettles the investigators who study him from a distance. Guilt does not always announce itself. Sometimes it hides behind perfect normalcy. When they bring him in for questioning, it is framed as courtesy. A formality. He agrees easily. He always has. The interview room is small, neutral, designed to feel temporary. He sits straight-backed, hands folded, eyes attentive. He answers questions with care, selecting words that leave room to retreat if needed. He remembers just enough to sound helpful. He forgets just enough to stay safe. Until he doesn't. A detail surfaces that only someone present would know. Not dramatic. Not incriminating on its own. But out of place. The detective doesn't react. He lets the silence stretch. The suspect fills it, then realizes too late that he shouldn't have. Outside the room, the past presses closer. The victim's name appears again in internal emails. On whiteboards. In conversations spoken low and fast. The case is no longer a ghost. It has weight. It casts shadows. The family is notified cautiously. Not promises. Not declarations. Just movement. Progress. A sense that something long frozen has begun to thaw. They listen without interruption, absorbing information the way survivors learn to, without expectation, without relief, guarding themselves against hope that has betrayed them before. That night, the detective stays late. He reviews the interview again, frame by frame, tone by tone. He notices what the suspect avoids. He notes how often the man refers to himself in the third person when discussing the year in question. Distance language. Separation. A subtle attempt to rewrite proximity. The cold case does not rush. It has learned patience from the years it spent ignored. But it also knows when to move. And now, with evidence aligning, memories resurfacing, and a man beginning to realize that routine no longer shields him, the story inches closer to the moment everyone once assumed would never come, the moment when the past stops waiting and demands to be answered. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But decisively. It begins without ceremony, without sirens, without the kind of chaos that usually signals the birth of a headline. A routine traffic stop on a Michigan highway just after midnight, asphalt still warm from the day, air thick with the quiet confidence of nothing about to happen. Red and blue lights cut across the dark like reflex, not alarm. The officer expects paperwork, a warning, maybe a mild argument over speed. Instead, history leans forward. The driver pulls over smoothly. No hesitation. No sudden movements. The window rolls down. A face appears in the glow of the dashboard, calm, cooperative, forgettable. The exchange is textbook. License. Registration. Where are you headed tonight? The answers arrive on time, polished by repetition, shaped by years of being exactly what no one looks twice at. Ordinary. Safe. Invisible. And yet, something doesn't settle. It isn't fear. It isn't instinct screaming danger. It's a detail too clean, a response too measured, a pause that lasts half a breath longer than it should. The officer doesn't name it. He doesn't need to. He steps back to the patrol car and enters the information, expecting nothing more than confirmation. The computer hums. The cursor blinks. Time stretches thin. Then a line appears that doesn't belong there. Not a warrant. Not a flag. Just a reference. A note buried deep in a system designed to remember things people stop asking about. A name. A date. Michigan. 2004. The officer freezes, eyes fixed on the screen, heart rate unchanged but attention sharpened. 30 miles away, in a police archive that smells like dust and paper, a file has been waiting for this moment for 20 years. A cold case. One that never found its ending. One that never stopped being true. Back then, the night was louder. Sirens cut through residential streets. Porch lights snapped on. Yellow tape fluttered uselessly in the wind. A body discovered where it shouldn't have been, in a place so familiar it felt violated by the act itself. The victim was known here, not famous, not powerful, just present enough that their absence rearranged the neighborhood. A routine life interrupted without explanation. The investigation moved fast at first. Too fast, some said later. Tips poured in. Neighbors whispered. Friends offered alibis they believed in. Detectives chased leads that evaporated under scrutiny. Evidence was collected carefully, dutifully, then sealed away when technology couldn't speak its language yet. Weeks turned into months. Months into years. And eventually, the case cooled, not because it was solved, but because time demanded attention elsewhere. Cold case. Two words that sound clinical, almost gentle, but carry the weight of everything unfinished. Back on the roadside, the officer looks up from the screen and studies the car ahead of him. The driver waits patiently, hands visible, posture relaxed. He has waited like this before. Many times. He has learned that patience is protection. What he doesn't know is that patience works both ways. The officer doesn't confront him. Not yet. He asks another question. Casual. Almost careless. The answer comes quickly, too quickly. The officer nods, returns to the patrol car, and radios in, not urgency, just clarification. Procedure. Professionalism. The kind of steps that don't attract attention until they're reviewed later in slow motion. Somewhere in the city, people sleep undisturbed. Lights are off. Dishes sit in sinks. Phones charge silently on nightstands. No one senses the shift that just occurred, the way a story long buried has cracked open beneath the surface. The past has not returned dramatically. It has slid quietly into the present, unnoticed except by those trained to notice. At the precinct, a detective is finishing paperwork, already thinking about going home, when the call comes through. A name is mentioned. A date. His pen stops moving. He asks for it again. The room feels smaller suddenly, as if walls have edged closer without warning. He remembers the file. Everyone does. It never left. It only moved further back, gathering dust without losing relevance. The detective opens the archive database and pulls the case. Photographs load slowly. Grainy images of a scene frozen in another decade. Notes typed on machines that no longer exist. Questions circled, underlined, unanswered. He stares at the screen and feels something he hasn't allowed himself in years. Momentum. Outside, the traffic stop concludes without incident. The driver is allowed to leave. No handcuffs. No accusations. Just a warning issued, a polite goodbye exchanged. He drives away convinced that normalcy has held, that routine has done its job once again. He does not see the way the officer watches his taillights disappear, nor the note added quietly to the report. This is how it starts. Not with an arrest. Not with a confession. But with a system remembering what it was built to remember, and people paying attention at the exact moment attention mattered. The cold case is not solved yet. But it is awake. And once awake, it does not forget. Part 13 moves in the narrow space between suspicion and certainty, where everything feels fragile, where one wrong step could fracture years of quiet progress. The investigation no longer asks if the past is connected to the present, only how much of it has been hiding in plain sight. The lab results return without ceremony. No dramatic call. No raised voices. Just a secure message, read twice, then a third time to be sure nothing has been misunderstood. The probability is not absolute, but it is strong enough to shift posture, strong enough to turn a theory into a direction. The numbers do not accuse, but they no longer allow doubt to hide comfortably. Detectives revisit old statements with new eyes. What once sounded cooperative now feels rehearsed. What once passed as confusion begins to look like control. Small inconsistencies surface, times rounded too neatly, movements described without texture, alibis supported by people who remember less each year. Memory erodes unevenly. Truth tends to leave sharper edges. They return to the crime scene in their minds, reconstructing it not as it was reported, but as it must have been experienced. The light. The angle. The silence that followed. They place the suspect there, not physically yet, but psychologically. They ask what kind of person could leave and then return to normal life without leaving ripples. The answer is never comforting. The man is brought in again, this time without the pretense of casual conversation. The tone shifts, subtly but unmistakably. He senses it immediately. His posture tightens. His answers shorten. He asks questions now, about timelines, about process, about why certain things matter. Curiosity framed as concern. Control attempting to reassert itself. They show him pieces of the past, carefully selected. A photograph he has not seen in years. A document he assumed had been lost. His eyes flicker, just once, but it is enough. The body reacts before the mind can intervene. He steadies himself quickly, but the room has already registered the change. Outside, word begins to circulate in controlled circles. Not rumors. Signals. The kind exchanged between professionals who understand the weight of confirmation. Prosecutors are briefed. Contingencies discussed. Everyone speaks in conditionals, but the momentum is unmistakable. The case is no longer asking permission to proceed. For the family, the waiting changes shape. It is no longer empty time. It is filled with updates that cannot be shared publicly, with phone calls that end in silence rather than reassurance. They learn to recognize the difference between optimism and preparation. This feels like preparation. Old acquaintances are contacted, some reluctantly, some with visible relief. A few admit they always suspected something but never believed suspicion was enough to matter. Others are genuinely shocked, forced to reconcile memories of kindness with the possibility of violence. The community holds its breath, caught between disbelief and recognition. The suspect's routine begins to fracture. He notices the cars that linger too long. The familiar streets feel narrower. Conversations become cautious, then clipped. He checks mirrors more often. Sleep becomes lighter. The past, once carefully compartmentalized, begins to seep through the cracks. In one final interview, the detectives stop asking open-ended questions. They present sequences. They offer him chances to correct the record. Each opportunity is also a test. He resists, but the resistance costs him. His explanations grow complex. Complexity breeds error. When the interview ends, no one announces what will happen next. They don't need to. The shift has already occurred. The machinery has engaged. That night, the lead detective drives home along the same route he has taken for years, passing neighborhoods that look unchanged, that always look unchanged. He understands now that time does not move evenly. Some moments stay sharp forever, waiting for the conditions that allow them to matter again. Part 13 does not deliver resolution. It delivers inevitability. The sense that every remaining step has already been accounted for, that the space for escape has narrowed to nothing. The cold case is no longer cold. It is focused. And it is closing in. Part 14 settles into the aftermath of momentum, when the case is no longer accelerating but tightening, when every movement feels deliberate and heavy with consequence. This is the phase where nothing dramatic needs to happen for everything to change. The warrant is drafted with surgical precision. Every sentence carries years of restraint. Every clause reflects evidence that survived neglect, storage rooms, policy changes, forgotten budgets. The language is careful, unembellished, confident enough to stand on its own. No theatrics. Just gravity. When the arrest comes, it does not arrive with sirens or spectacle. It happens in the early hours, under a sky that offers no witnesses. The knock is firm. The identification clear. The man listens without interruption as his rights are read. His face shows irritation more than fear, as if this were an inconvenience that arrived far too late to be taken seriously. He believes, still, in the power of composure. Neighbors watch from behind curtains, recognizing the moment only after it has passed. A car door closes. An engine starts. By the time phones are raised, the street is empty again. Later, people will argue about whether they heard something that morning, whether the air felt different. Memory adjusts itself to fit significance. Inside the station, procedure takes over. Fingerprints. Photographs. The slow exchange of personal items for institutional numbers. The suspect says little. Silence has always been his most reliable strategy. He assumes it will hold. The news breaks in stages. First a brief update. Then confirmation. Then context. The phrase, cold case, resurfaces, carried by anchors who were children when the crime occurred. The timeline is recited, condensed, stripped of its emotional residue. Viewers hear decades reduced to minutes, unaware of how much was left unsaid. For the family, the announcement lands without relief. It arrives as weight, not release. They had imagined this moment for years, but imagination never captured its texture. The shock is not in the arrest, but in the finality. The question is no longer who, but what now. Closure is promised by headlines, but it remains stubbornly abstract. The town reacts unevenly. Some express anger, others disbelief. A few retreat into defensiveness, insisting that the man they knew could not possibly be the one described on screen. Familiarity resists revision. It always does. Investigators begin the quiet work of transition. Evidence is re-examined not to discover, but to defend. Every step must now survive scrutiny. Every decision will be replayed by people who were not there. The case belongs to the system now, not the search. In the holding cell, the man waits. Time stretches differently here. He listens to distant sounds, measures hours by routine instead of clocks. For the first time in decades, he is unable to manage the narrative. The story is no longer his to curate. The prosecutor reviews the file late into the night, marking passages that once felt inconclusive but now read as inevitable. Patterns emerge. Not just of behavior, but of opportunity. The case is not about brilliance or planning. It is about access. About trust. About how violence often enters through doors already open. Across town, someone who once dismissed their own suspicions sits awake, replaying old conversations, old gestures, moments that felt insignificant until now. Guilt does not announce itself loudly. It accumulates. Part 14 does not celebrate resolution. It resists it. It shows how answers, once obtained, do not restore what was taken. They rearrange the present instead. The cold case has crossed a threshold. It is no longer defined by absence, but by accountability. And yet, the silence it left behind still lingers, heavy and unresolved, reminding everyone involved that truth, even when found, carries a cost that never fully fades. Part 15 unfolds in the long corridor between accusation and judgment, where certainty exists on paper but reality remains unsettled in the minds of everyone involved. This is the stretch of time that rarely makes headlines, yet it is where the weight of a solved cold case truly presses down. The courtroom is smaller than expected. Not the grand chamber people imagine for a case that spanned decades, but a practical room built for routine disputes. Its ordinariness feels almost offensive. Wooden benches polished by generations of restless hands. Fluorescent lights that hum faintly, indifferent to history. This is where the past has been asked to explain itself. The defendant enters without ceremony. No outburst. No visible defiance. He sits, straight-backed, hands folded, the same posture he once used at neighborhood gatherings, school events, casual conversations where no one suspected a thing. The transformation is not physical. It is contextual. The same man, placed under a different lens, suddenly unfamiliar. Prosecutors begin with facts, not drama. Dates. Locations. Chain of custody. They understand the risk of overreach. Cold case juries are cautious. They have been taught by decades of television to distrust delayed justice. Every claim must land cleanly. Every exhibit must justify its survival through time. The evidence speaks quietly. Fibers preserved in mislabeled envelopes. Statements once considered unreliable, now re-evaluated through modern analysis. A traffic stop that felt routine until it didn't. None of it is cinematic. All of it is cumulative. The case does not shout. It accumulates. The defense leans heavily on time. Memories fade. Procedures change. Standards evolve. They argue that the past cannot be judged by the present, that certainty erodes as years pass. It is a familiar strategy. Sometimes it works. Witnesses take the stand with visible tension. Some have rehearsed this moment for years, others dread it. Voices tremble. Details blur. But the core remains intact. They describe not just events, but atmospheres. The unease they couldn't name back then. The moments that didn't make sense until they did. The family watches from the gallery, silent, disciplined. They have learned that emotion is often used against truth. They focus on breathing. On staying present. On not imagining outcomes before they arrive. Outside the courthouse, reporters wait for statements that never come. There is nothing left to explain. The story, once fragmented, now moves forward without commentary. Inside the holding area, the defendant meets with counsel. Strategy replaces denial. The language shifts from "didn't happen" to "can't be proven." It is a subtle change, but an important one. It acknowledges gravity without accepting responsibility. Nights become longer. For everyone. Jurors go home carrying the case into their kitchens, their bedrooms, their quiet moments. They are instructed not to discuss it, yet they cannot prevent it from reshaping how they see ordinary things. A neighbor's wave. A familiar face. The idea that proximity equals safety begins to fracture. Investigators attend the proceedings with restrained expressions. This is not victory. It is exposure. Their work is no longer theirs alone. Every misstep is illuminated. Every delay questioned. They accept it. Accountability runs in both directions. Part 15 is defined by restraint. No verdict yet. No release. Just tension held in suspension. The cold case, once buried under years of silence, now sits fully awake in the present, forcing everyone to confront an uncomfortable truth: justice delayed is not justice denied, but it is never justice unchanged. The waiting continues. And waiting, after all these years, has become its own kind of reckoning.